Liz, can you tell us a little bit about your clinical expertise and training, and what kind of work do you do?
Sure. So my name's Liz Zhou. I received a master's degree in mindfulness-based transpersonal counseling at Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado. And so currently I am an LPCC licensed professional counselor candidate in the state of Colorado, working in private practice, primarily with adults and couples through that like transpersonal mindfulness, trauma-informed lens.
Okay, sounds good. And how does your background as an LCPP different than other mental health professions like CSW or MFT?
Hmm. So I think a lot of it just came down to the program that I chose, which is
Mm,
that, gave out LPCCs or prepared us for that track. And I chose it because that's perhaps the more common clinical license within the state of Colorado, although there's definitely like social workers as well. And LMFT is just less common in this
mm,
particular state. Yeah. And
okay,
pursued it with the goal of being able to practice psychotherapy.
okay, gotcha. It sounds like just like because of your state, and then LCPP seems like the right path for you to go. Okay,
Yes.
sounds good. And I know that from your website, you work with a lot of like different kind of populations as well. Can you tell me a little bit like how do you decide to work with minorities mostly, and what is your passion about it?
Sure. So, yeah, I tend to work primarily with people of color,
Hmm.
BIPOC, and yeah, including the AAPI community,
Hmm.
as well as like highly sensitive people. And how I got to this is a lot of it just came from my own personal lived experiences and
Hmm.
also seeing that there is a gap or deficit in services for people of color, particularly in the state of Colorado, because there aren't that many therapists of color in this state. And also, just statistically, like at national level, there aren't as many therapists of color. And so it was really important to me to provide culturally sensitive services and
Hmm.
to help people process the very unique experiences and challenges of being in a minority group or in
Hmm.
a marginalized identity, and a type of care and empathy and like shared experience that maybe wouldn't be possible with a therapist with other social locations.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. It sounds like to me that providing that unique experience and knowing the minorities' background as a therapist is very helpful for the clients as well. Especially a lot of like therapists, they probably don't have that expertise and kind of these tools like Liz you have. And I'm so glad that you're in this force and helping other minorities as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's important, I
And
think.
And if that's okay with you, I'm just kind of curious about what inspired you and what motivates you, Liz, to jump into this mental health force to help other people. How has your own background and life experience like shaped you in this career?
Yeah, definitely a big question. So I'll see where this answer takes me. When I think back on my early years, it was just often the case where I gravitated toward a helping role or a caretaker role, whether within my family system or just within social settings, kind of being the one who was a natural listener or who
Mm,
was, empathic and like actually wanting to be that person for other people and finding that like I felt like skilled in offering that
mhm,
type of informal support. And so when it came to like making specific decisions about my academic path, like even for
mhm.
my bachelor's degree, I honed in pretty quickly on psychology. Well, it was a little bit winding because I thought I'd do foreign languages first, and I was
Oh,
initially
okay.
a Russian major, but then I switched and did a sharp left from that and decided to major in psychology and kind of dabble in foreign languages more as a hobby rather than as a academic focus. So I found that like the jobs I was most attracted to like throughout college were like mental health field jobs.
Mm, mm,
So I found them really fulfilling and just that aspect of human connection, being able to like feel people's gratitude for like being supported and like, yeah, just like really feeling like the energy I was putting into it was meaningful and like aligned with my values. And so
Mm.
after undergrad, I received a fellowship to do some traveling and like kind
Oh.
of do a project abroad for 12
Mm-hmm.
months. So I chose the project topic of like altered states of consciousness across cultures because I was very
Mm-hmm.
curious how other cultures conceptualize psychology concepts, curious about how other cultures practice like different healing modalities, and just expanding beyond the Western psychology mindset. So I did that
Mm-hmm.
for 12 months and traveled to a variety of countries, mostly based in South America. So
Mm-hmm.
Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil. I did spend some time also in Mexico. I spent some time in Europe attending some conferences on like plant medicines, on dream work, like anything related to
Mm-hmm.
consciousness I was interested in, as well
Yeah.
as shamanism, spiritual healing practices.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned about like yoga and meditation in
Oh.
Nepal. I went to Gabon in West Africa to learn about like the traditional healing of the Iboga root. So just seeing like shamanic cultures, seeing like healing
Mm-hmm.
modalities and indigenous traditions, and like kind of seeing like how cross-culturally there are a lot of shared values and ideas about like what happens when we pay attention to the mind and the body, or what
Mm-hmm.
happens when we tap into the subconscious. So that expanded my scope of knowledge on psychology. And it led to a couple jobs later in Peru where I worked at like plant medicine centers, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually made my way back to the States to get that graduate's degree to do psychotherapy in the States.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me that your personality is like you want to help people, and then it sounds like to me that when you have a desire to try something else, and then you are a go-getter as well, and you just like go really, 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 you do it really well. It sounds like, and then you're really true to what you want, and that's why like you're back to. Are you originally from Colorado?
I'm no, I'm originally from Michigan,
Oh,
so
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Midwest Colorado.
Gotcha. And then now, like in Colorado, and you have this career, and then I imagine that you're helping a lot of people with your expertise as well.
Well, thank you for that reflection. Yeah, yeah, and totally. I think it's just been just like infused in my personality
Mm,
to enjoy this kind of work. Yeah.
definitely. So, Liz, it sounds like that you have spent a lot of years in different countries as well. Have you encountered any challenges during this process of um, getting what you want? And then I'm kind of curious about like your foreign countries experience, also like your support from your or maybe not really support, like, but your family's perspective about what you are trying to do what you want.
Yeah. So, where to start? I I find that yeah, when I was in other countries, and I'll stick with Peru as an example because that's where I've
Sure.
spent the most time, probably about a year like total across several years, like and just like being there in a state of curiosity, and like
Mm,
really not being in any place to say like, oh, this is how it should be done, because it's like, who, I'm really a guest in their culture,
uh-huh.
particularly when I was working at a plant medicine center that served ayahuasca and other plant healing plants in the Amazon jungle of Peru.
Oh.
And I was actually just assisting the shaman with the ceremonies and helping translate stuff from Spanish to English.
Mm,
I was really just like absorbing everything,
mm,
like
mm,
kind of taking notes in my mind of, oh, like this is how I would think about it from my Western psychology point of view, and this is how it's perceived in shamanic terms, or something like depression, right? In clinical psychology, like major
mm,
depressive disorder, it's this whole like category in the DSM. Like in the shamanic world, it's really not doesn't come with all those labels and clinical jargon. It's maybe like, oh, maybe you have like a heavy energy in your chest, or maybe there are like some like spiritual energies or entities that you've interacted with that have caused the depression or the fog to come over you. That might be a way
mm,
that it's conceptualized. So I was really just all ears and like all ears when I was in that environment, like
mm,
learning as much as possible. And like to an extent, kind of adjusting the way that I showed up in order to be like very respectful and like prioritizing that point of view, like not interjecting with, like, here's how I think about it. It's like, again, I'm a guest in their culture. And in terms of family perceptions of that, and of a lot of my experiences that are a bit out there, like the altered states of consciousness and the plant medicines, I think it was probably a bit of a, I guess, like process for my family, like sort of a learning curve for them to understand why I was so interested in it, and like
Yeah.
why I kept bringing it up, and almost this process of like, yeah, like translating what I was experiencing back to their culture as Asian American Chinese family, right? Like, hey, here's what I experienced. Here's how I can make it make sense in like your worldview.
Right.
So there was, yeah, that process of like even translating that back to them.
I see. I see. So it sounds like that in Peru, like you're as a guest, you're trying to absorb a lot of things, and at the same time with your family, like not even you are. I mean, you also have to translate back to your family what you're doing, and then so that they can understand like what you're doing and understand like it's very valuable for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And there are
Okay.
parts of it that maybe they didn't understand, or maybe it just, sounds so different from what they're
Mm,
used to that it's like, and in that case, it's like, okay, we leave it. We don't need to
okay.
force it right now. Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
like that. Okay. And a part of the work we do at Asian Mental Health Collective is to break down barriers to assessing mental health resources and services.
Mhm.
Um, could you share a little bit of the barriers your clients have shared with you, or like you have observed in the population that you serve?
Barriers to mental health
Yeah,
services. Okay.
mental health services. Yes.
Yeah, one huge barrier that we all know about is just financial accessibility. So
Yes.
yeah, whether there are providers in network with their insurance, and
Mm-hmm.
can they afford private pay, and even just the decision about that. And that's assuming that someone even has insurance in the first place, because that can be like a privilege to afford as well. So that's a huge barrier. And then like continued care, right? How do I, if sometimes insurance will dictate how many sessions are available, or the
Mm-hmm.
timing of it, or if they're even willing to cover it. So there's that. And then if financial resources are limited, then it of course limits how many sessions each person can pay for. And then beyond that, there's the challenge of even just getting connected to a therapist who has availability, who is
Yes.
qualified to support that person's needs. Because
Yeah.
we all have the specific things that are bringing us to therapy, and we want to make sure we're matched with someone who can adequately support us through that and like not cause further harm. So yeah, and I think that can particularly affect clients who have, yeah, those diverse like marginalized
Mhm.
identities, where it's like really hard for them to find a therapist
Yeah.
who understands that, or who is in that same community or social location in their area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So it
And
sounds like
stigma as well. The stigma of
stigma.
even being able to ask for help. Like there can be so much judgment of people who seek therapy. It's lessening now, but even that, like just naming, like, hey, I need a therapist. Do you know someone? That can be a taboo conversation, and for some people.
Yeah. I think that's very accurate that we talked about financial circumstances and also finding a good fit, and then also like even asking for help that sometimes can be scary.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that you noticed that kind of stigma is getting, I mean, that kind of like asking for help mentality is getting better or getting worse, you feel like right now?
The asking for help mentality.
Mhm.
I would say it's getting better. I would say the stigma is decreasing. Uh,
Mhm.
but I say that just from my corner of the world. I don't know if that's,
Mhm.
yeah, different based on like which pocket you live in.
Right,
But
that's true.
I even think about like all these like kind of big box therapy platforms that we
Mhm.
see like the ads for it's like just make a quick call and
Yeah.
like you'll get matched with a therapist. Like the fact that that's kind of normal to see and
Mhm.
on social media or in videos, like all of that helps to break down the stigmas of seeking therapy. Also, we see maybe more public figures talking about how they've got
Yes.
therapy, so that helps a ton. Yeah, so I would say it's gradually getting better.
Okay. I totally agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So Liz, I'm curious that like, have you had any experiences with therapy yourself as a mental health professional?
Mhm.
And what have been some of the takeaways from your experience that have stuck with you?
Yeah. So definitely I have had therapy myself and am, regularly in therapy myself to just continue growing in my personal process. My first experience with it was at my college counseling center. So just
Yeah.
getting matched to someone on campus and getting weekly support that gradually became bi-weekly and then monthly as things stabilized and just seeing how supportive it can be to have a person who is non-judgmental, who is
Mm-hmm.
uh, not actually in your personal life, who can have a more observational perspective of you and help you just be kinder to yourself, help you understand
Mm-hmm.
yourself better. That was my first experience. And then since then, I've had, kind of different therapists for different seasons of life.
Yeah.
I had some time while I was traveling abroad when I was working more with like shamanism. So not doing the traditional psychotherapy, but more so experiencing healing through like ceremonial contexts and
Yeah.
like shamanic contexts. But now that I'm back in the States, it's the regular therapy and like making sure
Yeah.
I'm whatever therapy I'm delivering, like EMDR, that I've had the experience of receiving it myself so that I know
Mm-hmm.
what it's like to be in the seat of the client. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see. For our community, what is some advice you have for someone wanting to explore their mental health, whether it's learning about the topics or like going to therapy or even like trying to find a job in the mental health field? What is
Hmm,
some advice that you have for them?
totally. Okay. Advice for getting involved in like the
Mental
mental
health.
health field. Okay.
Yes.
So I think one like low hanging fruit is uh, like maybe reading books or following
Mm.
social media page, healthy social media pages that
Uh-huh.
talk about mental health and psychology. I'm thinking about the Asian mental health page on Facebook and Instagram, right? Like that's a great way to just like receive information that can resonate with like real life experiences and maybe spark some self-understanding. But yeah, if people like reading books, they can do that. There's so many different
Mm.
like self-reflection books out there, or like books that speak to particular experiences and identities as well. So then from there, maybe it becomes like now I seek out my own therapist and maybe I like go online and look for them. Maybe I ask like a trusted person in my community who they recommend.
Mhm.
Like taking that step to like, kind of do the work from the client's seat. That is, another clear step. And then if one were to want to like get involved like professionally in the mental health field, I'd say like depending on like their level of education or like what
Mhm.
degrees they have, if it's like just bachelor's degree, then they could apply for a wide range of positions, like within like mental health clinics, community organizations, and like really just be curious about like what
Mm.
most passionate about working with. Is it like working with the immigrant
Mhm.
communities? Is it they like doing crisis work? Is it substance abuse recovery? Like really just figuring out what lights them up because we don't need to be everything for everyone. And if we're gonna
Sure.
be in the mental health field working in it, we want to be focusing our energy on like where we do our best work, and that can
Yes.
take a while to figure out. So I'd say that if someone's just getting their feet wet in the field, and then of
Yeah.
course if they do have that master's degree in counseling, social work, clinical psychology, or even a PhD, then maybe that opens the doors for them to do like, individual therapy, group therapy, to start their own practice, to work with another practice, and just keep honing in on like what did they love to do and like letting it evolve across time as well as maybe as their personal life changes, their professional interests change as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you that like we have to find out like what we want to do instead of like just jump into it and just do everything, right?
Yeah.
But maybe there's some people they can do everything, but um for Liz, I like your idea is to just find out like what you want to do and then just do that, hone into it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trial and error.
Well, Liz, it's been so wonderful. We're grateful for you to join us in this therapy chat. Before we close our interview, do you have anything that last burning desire to share something that you want to share with our audience?
Oh, anything burning to share? Huh. Hmm. I'd say yeah, just be open to like and I'm talking about therapy now, like if you're
Yeah,
in therapy, like just be open to the whole process.
yeah,
Don't be afraid to switch your therapist if it's not the right fit. Like you don't have to force it to work if it just feels off to you. Um, yeah, like maybe, yeah, just like there's so many choices out there for the most part, depending on your situation. So it's like you're not stuck with this
yeah.
one therapist if it's like you leave the sessions like constantly feeling worse or unheard.
Right.
That being said, this is back to being open to the whole process. Like part of the healing is that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes things feel a bit more difficult before they get better because we're kind of clearing out the junk drawers and it's like the spring cleaning where like
Yeah.
everything's going to look a little messier before it gets put back in the right place,
Uh-huh.
just as an analogy. So to just be aware that it's not this clean linear process of like I just gradually and consistently feel better every single day and I never feel bad again. It's more like you're learning about yourself and it's kind of like waves, and the idea is maybe you just learn to ride the waves more smoothly across time rather than wishing that there weren't waves at all.
Yeah, definitely. It's like
Yeah.
a process, and then it's not really like one linear line, and that can be like kind of messy as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Liz, thanks so much for your time, and it's really good to learn from you, and I hope you do well, and then take care.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas.
Thank you.